origami lovers. Welcome to Fold Space Origami Studio. My name is James Peak, and in this video I'm going to teach you how to fold this heart Valentine card that was designed by my friend Gay Merrill Gross. This model appears in the 1994 publication Creative Ideas for Paper Folding. I want to start out first by thanking Gay for granting me permission to make this video, because this is an excellent model and I'm really excited to share it with you. Before we jump into the folding, please consider subscribing to this channel if you haven't already, and stay tuned for more great content here at Fold Space Origami Studio. This model is folded from a 2x1 rectangle. So in this case, I've taken a 24 centimeter by 24 centimeter square, which is roughly 9.5 inches, and I've cut that piece of paper in half. So one square will yield 2 Valentine cards. I do recommend using a sheet of paper that is at least 9 inches or so on each edge, because as you can see, the model does shrink down quite a bit from the original sheet of paper. And there's a comparison. I should also point out that this model exhibits a color change. So I recommend using a piece of paper that has a different color on each side, such as a piece of kami. And I think kami works really well for this model. We will begin with the heart-colored side facing up. And our first step is to take the edge at the bottom, this short edge, and match it up to the short edge at the top. Next, we will unfold the model, and I'm going to rotate it so that now the long edges are at the bottom and the top. And for this next step, we are only going to crease on 1/2 of the paper. We're going to match the long edge at the bottom up to the long edge at the top. But when we make our fold, once we have everything aligned, we'll hold before we fold. But I'm only going to crease on the right side, in this case, of the center crease, and then all the way out to the outside. And then we'll unfold the paper, and you'll see that crease is only on this half of the paper. Now we will use that center crease to make what is often referred to as cupboard folds. So we'll take the bottom edge here, and we'll bring it up, and we'll align it with that partial crease that we made. And it is helpful to keep an eye on this end here to make sure that this corner is aligned with this edge, okay? But once we are lined up, we will start in the center, and we will crease all the way to each end of the paper this time. And so that is 1/2 of our 2 cupboard folds. So I like to take the paper and rotate it so that now I can fold the second cupboard door by folding up and away from myself. So here we go. We'll take that bottom edge and we'll match it up to the previous edge, brought to the center, and we'll make our crease all the way across. Now we will open up the cupboard doors, and now I'd like for you to orient the paper so that the 3 crease segments in the paper are visible on the bottom half of the paper. So in other words, that partial half crease that we made is down here. And for the next step, we are going to make another partial crease. Okay, so let me point out that the crease that we make is going to stop where these cupboard creases are right down here. So let me show you what that crease will be. Before you make the fold, you might just want to watch and see what I do. We're going to take this section of the paper, this edge of the bottom half of the 2x1 rectangle, and we're going to bring it so that it sits and meets the horizontal crease that we started with. Okay? So let's just begin by aligning that side edge with the horizontal crease. Now, as I mentioned before, we want to stop our crease when we reach the cupboard creases that we made in the previous step. So I'm going to start up here, and then I'm going to start making my crease, but then I'm going to keep an eye out for this horizontal line, which is our cupboard crease, and that's where I will stop this crease. So here to here, but we don't crease this bottom corner. All right, now we can unfold that flap and then do the same exact thing from this side of the paper so that we make a second diagonal crease that makes an X, but we'll still stop at this cupboard crease. So we take that over here, line it up, and sometimes it helps if you can't see the crease very well, especially on the colored side of the paper. If you kind of bend and gauge that first crease that we made, that can help you line things up a little bit. And I don't think I'm lined up yet, so here we go. All right, being careful with the alignment. I will start my crease here, travel down diagonally, and then stop once I hit that crease line that is running horizontally in this orientation. Okay, so then I unfold that flap, and now we have these two creases that make an X, but stop here and here. Now we're going to use those two same intersections where we stopped the diagonal crease as our landmark for the next step. What we're going to do is we're going to take the bottom edge and we're going to bring it up to meet those two intersections, but we only want to crease the paper in the center of those two intersections. Well, actually, what I mean is we only want to crease in between the two cupboard creases that we made before. So here's what that looks like. I'll take the bottom edge and I'll begin by kind of aligning it with those two intersections here and here. And then I usually like to use these three fingers to kind of start to fold the paper and to steady it as I make my alignment. And then once I'm pretty happy with that, I'll go ahead and I'll crease, but I'll stay in between those two cupboard creases that run here to here. Okay? So this is another partial crease. And then we unfold the paper. Now before we flip the paper over, we are going to reverse a few of the crease segments. And we're going to be looking at these cupboard creases once again. So from here to here, we have a cupboard crease, and here to here. But we're only going to reverse those valley folds into mountains from this half down. Okay? So I'm going to turn the paper like so, and see my X over here. And I'm going to find that valley crease, and I'm just going to kind of reverse it very carefully because I don't want to make any new creases when I do this. So I'm going to reverse that and pinch that into a mountain fold, but I'm only going to pinch to the halfway mark of the paper. And I'll do the same with the other cupboard crease by kind of bending the paper, pinching, being careful not to make any new creases. I'm only reversing this valley fold into a mountain, and then travel up to that half line right here. Okay? And we're doing that to set us up for a step that occurs later on in the model, which is a pretty cool step. I think you'll like it. Now that we've reversed those crease segments, we can now flip the paper over and note that I am keeping the X here at the bottom. And now I'm going to take the bottom edge, that short edge, and I'm going to bring it up to meet the crease line in the middle. So we fold that up. And we're actually making another set of cupboard folds, but this time with the short edges. So I'm going to rotate the paper so I can do the same with this edge. Bring it up to meet in the middle. And I'm going to actually get this out of the way so that I can use the crease as my guide as opposed to the other edge. Because that edge is sitting up a little bit because of that one fold. You can kind of see it here bending up. So I'm going to keep that out of the way and just use the existing crease. Okay. Now I'm going to unfold that flap, and I'm going to spin the paper back around so that now the X is back at the bottom. And it's very important that we have this half of the paper at the bottom, because now we're going to take this bottom edge and bring it up to the crease that we just made up here at the top. So I take that bottom edge and I bring it up, I align it with the crease, and I make my fold. And notice how once I've got it lined up, I like to hold the paper, slide my hand down to get the crease started, and then go from the middle and go all the way out to one side, back to the middle, and all the way out to the other. And this is generally how I like to fold pieces of paper in half. We can now leave the model folded from the previous step, and let's draw our attention to these cupboard creases once again. We use these a lot throughout the course of this model. What we're going to do now is take this creased edge at the bottom from the corner up to that cupboard crease, and we're going to bring the horizontal creased edge up vertically to align with the cupboard crease. So we fold that up, making sure not to go past that cupboard crease. We make our fold, and then we'll do the same on the opposite bottom corner. Bring that horizontal creased edge up to the vertical cupboard crease, and we make our fold. And we can now unfold those corners. Now, I usually like to rotate the model in this position now for this next step. And this is the move that I was referring to earlier, where we reversed those cupboard crease segments to make this step a lot easier. And this is really cool how this works. So we're basically going to do a swivel of sorts. And so here's that cupboard crease, and notice what I'm going to do. I'm going to take that cupboard crease, I'm going to start to sort of bend it like so, okay? And that diagonal crease that we made in the previous step is also going to come into play here. So if I take this flap and I kind of tuck it underneath, there we go. You see what happened there? I'll show you that one more time. We're not making any new creases in this step. We're just taking that cupboard crease, that mountain fold, and we're taking the paper and we're holding the rest of the model closed while we do this, and we're just kind of tucking it under. And as we do that, this corner of the paper kind of comes with it. And there you have it. Let's do the same thing on the opposite side. So I'll switch hands. There's our mountain crease. We're going to kind of tuck that underneath. And watch how that corner just comes with it. And there you go. Whoop. I think that's pretty neat. It's one of those really satisfying origami moves that I just love. Moving on, we are now going to use that crease that we made earlier that sat just between those two cupboard creases. So what we're going to do is we're going to engage that valley crease. And what's going to happen is we're going to create squash folds with the side corners here. And this is pretty neat too, because as we kind of flip this flap upwards, we start to get the makings for a squash fold. And what we want to do is find this crease segment in the middle of the triangle pocket that's formed on each side. And we can do these one at a time. Even though this flap is connected to both corners, we can just focus on one side at a time. So I'm going to focus here on the left side. I'm going to push that flap up and kind of let it sit flat on the table. And while I do that, I'm going to find that horizontal crease, and I want to line it up with the creased edge that sits just beneath it, or just underneath it, I should say. So I'm going to find that line, and then I'm going to flatten. And that's going to give us a more or less symmetrical right isosceles triangle here on this end. And then we can do the same on this side. I'm going to kind of flatten that find the crease, line it up, and there we go. And I will say that so many origami heart models out there use squash folds to get one section of the bump at the top, of the two bumps at the top of the heart. And then we've got these two corners, which we will now fold in. So for that, I'm going to take this edge here, and I'm going to line it up with the little horizontal segment that's just above it. So we're folding another triangle flap. So I'm going to take this, fold it up, and align it with the horizontal edge. And don't worry too much if you've got a gap here in the paper. It's pretty common. And then we'll do the same with the other corner here. Fold that up. And there we go. So you can't really see it yet, but this is actually the top of the heart. And now, with the next step, we're basically going to form the rest of the heart. And to do so, we are going to engage those diagonal creases we made earlier on that made the big X. And this collapse is very similar to a preliminary fold, or you could also even think of it as like a water bomb fold, which is really one and the same. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's okay. I'm just going to show you what I mean. So if we kind of push the paper in, and I'm going to engage these two valley creases to start with. Okay, so the paper is going to start to do this. Now I basically want these mountain creases in the center to meet along this vertical center line. Okay, so the paper starts to do this. But now what I want to do, and it helps to kind of pinch these layers together, I want to collapse this model, or this part of the model, up. And you'll see that starts to give us our heart. Now, we've got these layers that we kind of have to contend with, and we are making a new crease, or two new creases through this top layer. But we can use these creases as our guide. So, just kind of bring that up. We find the heart, and then let everything sit flat. And don't worry if you have a slit going down the middle. Again, that is common. I think that pretty much always happens for me. And we've got our heart. However, it's a little pointy at the top. So again, like in many heart models, we take these two tips at the top and we'll fold them back just a little bit. We don't need to fold them back very far, but just enough to get more of a rounded look, even though we still have straight edges at the top. So we'll do the same here, kind of take that, pinch it, fold it back. And there is the heart. And we don't have much left to do here. The rest of the model kind of just folds itself. Next, we'll notice that the very first crease that we made when we started folding this card, this, what is now a mountain crease, runs along this color change. So really what we just want to do is take this part of the paper underneath it and just fold it back. Okay, we're just engaging that crease where the color changes so that we're here. And then now we'll come back one last time to those cupboard creases that we made early on. And we're going to take these cupboard doors, and we want to make sure this all sits flat. We're just going to kind of treat it like it's one single layer. And we want to kind of close the cupboard door underneath the heart on each side. And now you can see where this is going. We'll take the other half, close it up, set the heart part back down. And finally, our last step is to just engage this existing crease here to here and turn it into a mountain fold. And that will form the back half of the card. And there you have it. Again, I want to thank Gay Merrill Gross for granting me permission to teach this lovely card. And I want to thank you all for joining me for this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. I'll see you in the next video. Happy folding!